The scene combines an opulent showroom, a laid-back sweatshirt, and an astonishing revelation. How does a car dealership manager reconcile with the realization that the man in the background is actually the owner? In bright Scottsdale, Arizona, Ethan turned into the parking lot of Prestige Motors, his flagship dealership that he had just bought. Glistening in the afternoon light, the sleek luxury automobiles parked out front reflected the desert heat. Their shiny surfaces seemed to shine. Stepping out, he took time to survey the dealership's facade after parking his modest SUV in an unmarked place at the back. Instead of trying to draw attention to himself, he wore casual clothing. For the day, he wore a plain gray sweatshirt, somewhat faded pants, and sneakers. He consciously chose to dress in a more relaxed manner. Before the new boss came on, he wanted to witness the dealership in its natural state, when everyone was unaware of his presence. On his way to the door, he overheard a few workers inside speaking at the reception counter. Through the glass doors, one could make out the low-volume sounds of laughing and small talk. Ethan entered the building after opening the door. In sharp contrast to the sweltering weather outside, the leather and new wax aromas wafted through the air-conditioned showroom. Under the luminous lights, rows upon rows of immaculate automobiles shimmered. As he entered, the noise level dropped. When the workers glanced over at Ethan, they looked briefly at his sweatshirt and footwear. A change in energy, the type that defied description, was palpable to him. However, he refrained from making hasty judgments. He came to watch. The next thing you knew, she stepped out of the showroom. "My name is Brenda Mitchell." The middle-aged Brenda Mitchell had angular features and an even more angular stare. She exuded confidence in her fitted jacket, polished shoes, and clipboard-wielding self. Her stride was deliberate, her shoes tapping on the shiny floor as she drew near. Though Ethan couldn't help but notice the tension in her grin, her look was initially friendly. Brenda Mitchell started to say, "Excuse me," in a cold, clipped voice. "Is there anything I can do to assist you?" With a composed expression, Ethan grinned. He nonchalantly said that he was only taking a look around as he pointed to the automobiles. As Brenda Mitchell scanned him from head to toe, her gaze sharpened. Something less inviting replaced her amiable facade, which had slipped just a hair. "Is that so, going automobile shopping?" With a hint of uncertainty in her voice, she inquired. Ethan continued to smile as he nodded. Such is the nature of the situation. Brenda Mitchell furrowed her brow. "Here we serve a very specialized demographic. A pre-qualification is required for the majority of our goods. Maybe I could suggest—" Another worker yelled out before she could complete her sentence. "Salutations, Brenda Mitchell. The courier has arrived." For a short second she looked away from Ethan, but then she quickly returned her focus, as if to keep him from straying too far. Even though he kept his tone light, Ethan arched an eyebrow. "I take it you don't think I belong here?" She was somewhat taken aback by the question. Her stance stiffened as she swiftly recovered. She responded with an artificial grin. "Prices for these cars begin in the 6 digits. Possibly, I can point you in the direction of—" Even while Ethan's face remained expressionless, he couldn't help but take note of her word choice. Even though he remained composed, he couldn't deny the subtle hurt that her assumptions caused. Brenda Mitchell watched him eagerly as the moment continued, tension lingering in the air. Pretending to be enchanted by one of the surrounding automobiles, Ethan cast a quick glance around the showroom. An aggressively styled silver coupe it was. Looking back at Brenda Mitchell, he ran his fingers over the doorknob. "Nice ride," he remarked plainly. Even though she creased her brows slightly, she pushed on with her false grin. "I think so. If you are prepared to ask a more substantial question, we may arrange a meeting. For the time being, I must insist that you refrain from touching the automobiles." After standing for a while and thinking about what she said, Ethan got out of the car. With his hands in his pockets, he gave her a single nod and motioned for her to go on. "Good. Then I'd want to hear it. To someone like myself, what are your recommendations?" His inquiry was so forthright that Brenda Mitchell blinked in astonishment. However, before she could respond, Ethan interrupted her, saying, "I'm open to suggestions if you believe you understand what I need." The irritation underneath her courteous exterior finally broke through. "Perhaps just the slightest bit more reasonably priced. I can point you in the direction of a car lot that sells only used cars." Ethan managed a little grin. However, it remained unseen by him. His eyes had seen enough. "That's quite the assumption," he whispered. Brenda Mitchell stumbled for an instant as the comment lingered in the atmosphere. Subsequently, she straightened her back after collecting herself. Saying, "I'll be back with a list of options," she hurriedly walked away. His gaze was impenetrable as Ethan watched her leave. His gaze returned to the gleaming silver car, revealing his own reflection. It seemed like today was going to be full of surprises. With his hands in his pockets and his eyes wandering over the array of automobiles, Ethan stood in the center of the showroom. He was careful not to assume anything. It was difficult to disregard Brenda Mitchell's callous demeanor, though. The employees around him had returned to their chats, although he did catch a few looks in their direction. His years on the field had accustomed him to this level of scrutiny. He made his decisions in silence, looking coded. With her clipboard held securely as if it were a shield, Brenda Mitchell reappeared a little while later. She was clearly annoyed as her quick step and fake smile showed. "Sure," she remarked as she halted a little distance from him. "I've put up some alternatives that might work better for your current situation." "Situation?" Ethan gently cocked his head. "Where am I?" Brenda Mitchell responded sharply. She presented him with a printed list of used cars, complete with descriptions and prices that were far lower than the dealership's usual deals. "Models like this are easier to use, practical, affordable, and dependable." Silently perusing the list, Ethan accepted it. It was a pre-owned car. The vehicle in question is a used SUV. He was in the midst of a transformation. A little smile spread over his face, but he concealed it as he folded the paper and put it in his pocket. The tone of his words was one of appreciation for the effort. After his reaction briefly disarmed Brenda Mitchell, she swiftly regained her composure and put her hands on her hips, as if about to divulge a secret. Her voice dipped as she commanded attention. "I simply want to be honest with you. Everyone can't be a Prestige Motors customer. I don't want to waste your time." Ethan looked directly into her eyes, his countenance composed yet unmoved. "By the way, why do you not consider me to be your ideal client?" Brenda Mitchell was momentarily hesitant. "I've been doing this for a long time," she declared. "When someone is completely unprepared, I can tell." "A bit out of their element," Ethan reiterated in a tone that was neutral and almost contemplative. "Quite intriguing." Brenda Mitchell continued despite a fleeting look of doubt in her eyes. "It's important to be upfront and honest. Instead of leaving someone unsatisfied, it's preferable to be honest from the start." Ethan shook his head slightly and emitted a low-volume laugh. "True, isn't it? I appreciate candor. Give it a go. Because of you, I was able to talk with the owner. Is it possible for us to do that?" Brenda Mitchell arched an eyebrow. For the first time, she seemed truly taken aback. "Who owned it?" With a casual, even conversational tone, Ethan confirmed that it was true. "I would want to speak with them privately." A shaky effort at a grin emitted from Brenda Mitchell's lips. "Sorry, but it won't work for the day. The owner doesn't make random appearances. Their schedule is filled with activities." Ethan nodded slightly and stated, "I'm sure they are. However, you may try calling them. Send word that I'm available. They would probably like to meet me." A clench formed in Brenda Mitchell's mouth. It was clear that her tolerance was becoming thin. "Please, see. I apologize if my tone comes out as impolite, but this is becoming absurd. I must attend to other customers. One of our sales advisors can meet with you at your convenience if you are serious about purchasing a vehicle. In any case, what if everything else fails?" Even though Ethan's voice had taken on a noticeable edge, his tone remained calm as he inquired. Brenda Mitchell's annoyance was visible as she squinted her eyes. "In any case, I may have to politely ask you to vacate the premises." Implicit meaning weighed down the words. With his eyes fixed on hers, Ethan remained still. The entire showroom appeared to pause for a moment. Ethan retrieved his phone from his pocket and released it softly. As he perused his contact list, he finally decided it was okay. "I will personally make the call." Brenda Mitchell's forehead wrinkled when she blinked. "Just what are you up to?" While holding the phone up to his ear, Ethan said that he was only contacting the owner. This process should not take much time. Anger gave way to perplexion as Brenda Mitchell's self-assurance wavered. She loosened her jaw and parted her lips, but nothing came out. A handful of workers around them had halted what they were doing to observe the sight that was developing, as if to indicate, "Hold on a second." Ethan shifted his head ever so slightly and continued talking on the phone. "It is indeed I'm present at the car lot. There's no need to worry. I apologize for any confusion. Can you inform them that I've arrived?" Before returning his attention to Brenda Mitchell, he finished the conversation and put the phone back into his pocket. He said simply that they will be arriving soon. Brenda Mitchell's mouth hung slightly open as she gazed at him. Brenda Mitchell's mouth hung slightly open as she gazed at him. Ethan took a while to respond. His attention shifted to the employees, who were now watching him closely as he cast a quick peek around the showroom. He seemed to suggest almost playfully that we will discover the truth. Everyone in the room could feel the strain of the mounting tension. Brenda Mitchell moved awkwardly, her poise starting to crumble. Despite the passage of time, the room seemed to stand still. The anxiety that Brenda Mitchell was feeling was evident in her stiff and methodical motions as she occupied herself with her clipboard. In contrast, Ethan stood calmly next to one of the fancy SUVs, which only served to heighten the anxiety. While they snatched glances at the unfolding drama, the few staff members scattered throughout the showroom whispered to each other. Someone or something was obviously awaiting everyone. There had been complete quiet until the big doors swung open. A dapper-looking man in a blue suit entered the room, his shoes making a gentle clicking sound as they hit the tile floor. He looked straight at Ethan, his face a mix of seriousness and warmth. The man smiled broadly and extended his hand as he walked up to Mr. Hayes. "Pleasure to meet you." With a tight hold, Ethan reciprocated the handshake, a little smile playing on his lips. "Michael Davis, I appreciate you being here." "Thanks a bunch." They all tensed up in that one room. Michael Davis, the regional director of the dealership, and Ethan were so intensely focused on one another that Brenda Mitchell's clipboard almost fell out of her fingers. Her seeming bewilderment transformed into outward fear in no time. "Pardon me, Mr. Hayes." Uncertainty hung in her voice as she echoed. Michael Davis pivoted to face her, his once kind manner now taking on an air of professionalism, bordering on abruptness. "Seems like you've met Mr. Hayes before, Brenda Mitchell." Brenda Mitchell appeared to struggle for words, blinking and opening and closing her mouth repeatedly. "Yes, well, it didn't occur to me. He just bought out this dealership, and you had no idea?" With an acerbic tone, Michael Davis completed her sentence. With a contrite expression on his face, he cast a quick glance at Ethan. "I hope this was not the greeting you were hoping for." Ethan stopped him with a raised hand. "Michael Davis, it's okay. Brenda Mitchell and I may have simply gotten off to a disastrous start." The audience hung on every word he spoke, even though his voice was serene. Brenda Mitchell retreated a step, her clipboard held aloft like a lifeline, while her complexion became pale. "Yes, Her voice hardly rose above a whisper as she mumbled, "I'm so sorry. I was unaware." "Did you not know what?" With a tone that was both soft and assertive, Ethan inquired. "This property could potentially be mine to own. This place may be perfect for someone like me." Her pupils dilated and she appeared completely bewildered for an instant. I didn't intend for—" By raising a hand, Ethan interrupted her. "It's all right, Brenda Mitchell, I assure you." As he drew nearer, his voice lowered to the point that everyone leaned in. "I do have a question, though. Would you have dealt with me differently if I weren't the owner? Would you have treated me with the utmost deference if I had entered this establishment dressed formally?" Brenda Mitchell hesitated before speaking. Everyone could barely hear a sound. As if her quiet were sufficient, Ethan gave a nod. His voice took on a different tone as he faced Michael Davis. "Please come to the meeting room. I suppose we need to have a brief discussion about the operational procedures here." The air was heavy with anxiety as the staff walked into the modern meeting room. The show-stopping space, with its sleek glass walls and contemporary furniture, seemed oppressive today. Sitting toward the rear, Brenda Mitchell's normally self-assured manner had been replaced with a terrified silence. Everyone in the room was captivated by Ethan's poise and composure as he stood at the head of the table. Michael Davis stood at the entrance, arms crossed, his face making no discernible expression as he observed the employees settling into their chairs. As Ethan cleared his throat and looked around the gathering, the low hum of murmurs faded away. As Ethan started, his tone was measured but stern, and he thanked everyone for coming so suddenly. "I am Ethan Hayes, in case you were wondering, and I just became the owner of Prestige Motors last month." A few of the workers reacted with expressions ranging from curiosity to shame as they mumbled their shock. By lowering herself on her chair, Brenda Mitchell avoided making eye contact. According to Ethan, who maintained a steady voice, there was a purpose to his casual attire today. "I was curious to see the dealership's operations in a state of complete anonymity. I want to feel the same way a consumer would when they enter this establishment." He paused for a bit to allow the words to sink in before moving on. "It was disheartening what I went through today. I was evaluated based on my appearance rather than my abilities. We need to discuss what that indicates about this dealership's culture, and I'm not trying to pick anyone out." Redness spread across Brenda Mitchell's face as she shifted uneasily in her seat. After a quick glance in her direction, Ethan returned his attention to the rest of the group. "He told me it wasn't all about him. Each and every one of the people that enter those doors is important. Every single consumer who doesn't conform to the stereotypical image of a buyer of high-end automobiles." With some hesitation, a younger sales colleague put up his hand. Ethan gave him a knowing nod. "Sure, I can help you out." An anxious guy started talking to Mr. Hayes. "We all do our best to be fair to clients, but occasionally, assumptions are easy to make sometimes." Nodding, Ethan's face betrayed his deep contemplation. "I get that," he said. "Whether we are conscious of them or not, we all possess prejudices. However, let me explain. Attempting fairness is insufficient. We need to make an effort to combat those prejudices. We need to make sure that everyone feels welcome and valued here, no matter who they are or where they come from." He paused to digest the previous words before proceeding. "This car lot is well known for its high quality. Superiority, however, extends beyond the automobiles we offer. Our focus is on the quality of service we offer. Fairness, inclusion, and respect will now form the foundation of that experience." A consensus swelled across the room, with just a handful of cautious expressions. Brenda Mitchell, who was sitting still with her hands clenched in her lap, caught Ethan's eye. He spoke softly but strongly to Brenda Mitchell. "I would want to offer you the chance to communicate. Would you like to make some remarks?" She was the focal point of attention. Her voice trembled as she finally spoke after much hesitation. "Yes, I messed up," she said. Anger rose to her cheeks. "You were more intelligent than I perceived. I deeply apologize for it." No one could interpret Ethan's countenance as he nodded. He thanked her for expressing such. "For the sake of everyone involved, I pray this ordeal acts as a reminder. We are all in this together, because responsibility is the first step toward change." Back to the gang he turned. "To make sure our business stands for what I believe in, we will be introducing new training programs soon. There should be no exceptions when it comes to treating customers with decency. This is the moment for everybody who has a problem with that to express their concerns. Silence filled the room. The meeting room was eerily quiet, only broken by the subtle hum of the air conditioner. Even though no one spoke, everyone there felt the weight of what Ethan had spoken. After a little period of silence, Ethan resumed speaking with a steady but determined tone, having made his point. "Okay," he remarked. "It's good to see that everyone is in agreement. Sometimes it's challenging to adapt. However, it is essential. Furthermore, this dealership will serve as an exemplar." Stepping away from the table, he leaned forward ever so slightly, his hands delicately resting on its edge. "I want to make something really plain. It was never my intention to embarrass anyone today. I learned about the society I was born into and how we might improve it." His gaze shifted to Brenda Mitchell, who remained still in her seat at the rear. He spoke softly enough to make it apparent he wasn't targeting Brenda Mitchell when he said it. "It must have taken a lot of hard work for you to reach your current position. You're clearly an experienced manager, but today served as a wake-up call. Not just for you, but for everyone." As they locked eyes for the first time, Brenda Mitchell glanced up. She apologized, her voice quivering but genuine. "I will not rest until I have made amends for my mistake." Nodding, Ethan gave the signal. "Second chances," he stated plainly. "Priority one, though, is responsibility. I will be scheduling a private appointment with you to go over the next stages. For the time being, let's concentrate on what's next." Refocusing on the other members of the squad, he straightened up. "It's more than simply a vehicle dealership. Our goal is to establish credibility, foster meaningful connections, and provide an example of superiority. If that's what you decide, I will stand by your side no matter what." A little louder and more sincere murmur of agreement arose. After the initial stress subsided, the personnel appeared to have a fresh sense of purpose. Nodding in agreement was even Michael Davis, who had been silently standing at the entrance. A subtle grin spread across Ethan's face, betraying a mix of relief and resolve. "Okay, I understand. It is time to resume our tasks. What is really important is not what we sell, but rather how we treat people." Ethan noticed Brenda Mitchell standing at the door as the staff started to leave the room. With trembling hands, she cautiously approached him. Starting quietly, she addressed Mr. Hayes. For the opportunity you've given me to improve. I am really grateful. In no way will I disappoint you." With a calm voice, Ethan responded after glancing at her for a while. "Oh, Brenda Mitchell, I really hope you mean it. What matters more than words are deeds, but if they put their minds to it, I think everyone can change." Nodding, her expression seemed sincere. "Indeed, I am." Michael Davis caught Ethan's attention as he watched her depart. He suggested that we meet with the employees next week. "I want everyone to be in agreement moving forward." Michael Davis's admiration for Ethan was clear from his smile. "I'm confident in you, boss." Ethan looked around the showroom as he returned to his seat, taking in the shiny automobiles bathed in the afternoon sun. He considered the amount of labor that was still to come. The day before, though, he had never felt hopeful. It was about more than just operating a car dealership. The objective was to make something greater. People valued each other for who they were rather than how they looked, and Ethan was prepared to take the lead.